Good evening, MMA fans. So it has come out in the news that Ben Askren will be fighting his last fight against Shinya Aoki on November 24th in ONE Championship. This will be his last fight. He is retiring after this to become an executive at ONE Championship Fighting. I do, just like many other fans, wish that this guy had fought in the UFC, regardless of whether he would have been able to stay in the UFC or not. I really did want to see him fight people like Rory McDonald, Tyron Woodley, even though they are teammates, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to see him fight Robbie Lawler. There are just so many interesting matchups that Ben Askren could have been a part of in the UFC, or even in, well, Bellator. He already did fight in Bellator, and he did dominate even the current Bellator champion, Douglas Lima. But I think it does kind of suck seeing that Ben Askren didn't fight in the UFC. And this man is obviously very smart. He knows that he doesn't want to fight forever, and he also doesn't want to get to the point where he's just going to have a string of losses and then become like a Fedor, where Fedor was a once all-time great, and then now he's basically at the end of his career taking losses, winning very controversial decisions. So I think I speak for many fans that I just wish that Ben Askren would have fought in the UFC. At least a few fights, but there's a lot of problems between him and Dana White, and he decided to go with a different team, so you can't blame him for that. Dana White would have never allowed that kind of style to be in the UFC, and I personally would have loved to see Ben Askren come in the UFC and win the title, but I think Dana White knew a long time ago that had Ben Askren come into the UFC and won a title and beaten everybody, it would have been all fights. Many fights would have been dominated by Ben Askren in a very boring fashion, and his fights would not have sold or gained very much hype. But when you look at Tyron Woodley's recent fights, it's very similar. Takes quite a bit of, it does require boring fights to be a long-time champion. When you go out and go crazy and fight, risking it all on the line, like a Justin Gaethje, usually those guys do not last too long. I don't know how Justin Gaethje has done it. He must have some genetic gift, or he just hasn't reached the age or wear and tear yet before he's just gonna get knocked out left and right. But those are my thoughts. Ben Askren versus Shinya Aoki. I wish Ben Askren the best, and I'm glad that he did not go and try to get in the UFC. I think there are many options in this life, and to just go with the most popular option is not always the right way to go. The UFC is a monopoly, so if Ben Askren was aware of that, and that's the reason he did not ever really try that hard to get in the UFC, then I congratulate him. I myself am not that big into monopolies, so yeah, that's it. Comments, analysis, opinions, please leave them, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.